Hello, it's Jim Channon from the Bioport in North Kohala. Rather disturbing news. It looks like we may have to stop taking new passengers on board our ship. Over the past several years, we have lost the use of our farmland, the water that brought that farmland to life, and the food that might be coming in from the ships that may not be coming in so often anymore. I'm talking about a moratorium on the development of housing here in North Kohala that may have to come as a function of public safety. We have extreme climate situations in the world, plague, nuclear terrorism, oil stoppage, the likelihood of a stock market crash, and at least 6 other things that make life different for us, different than ever before. Different than a time when we could just simply reach out into the land and get the food we needed to survive. Those gardens, those plots of food, that connection to our pumps and the water that come to us do not exist at the present time. The problem in North Kohala at this point is a problem whereby we just simply can't take any more passengers on our ship. Our ship doesn't have the capacity to make the food it needs, to have the water it needs, or to generate the power it needs. And therefore, taking on more passengers is a bit like heading out to the middle of the Pacific, with a cooler full of food and water and a candle or two. It just won't work. The community that is here in North Kohala has a particularly difficult decision to make. And that decision revolves whether we take any new passengers aboard our ship. Can we afford any more pure housing up here? Since all it means is more people to feed, more people who need water, and more people who need power. And we don't have the capacity anymore to produce any of those things on our own. We've also not kept up with our gardening and a few other things that put us in a very precarious position. 5 years ago, this wouldn't have been a problem because the ships coming from the mainland and Indonesia and other places were coming without any threat to that coming. But now, there are not 1 but 6 powerful threats at the global level, like the collapse of our economic system, nuclear terrorism, plague, war in the Middle East, expanding, peak oil, which is already a reality. There already are more demands for oil than there are ways to get it. And 1 or 2 other similar kinds of disasters would make it difficult for anyone to send food and oil 3,000 miles out to the middle of the ocean when it costs oil to get it here. So the situation surrounding our world here has changed. What has not changed, and what we've learned, is the government of the United States is not prepared to help us at the scale we need it, and the county of the state of Hawaii is also not prepared to help us. So, taking on more passengers, more housing, more tract housing, more people, more roads, more food, more water? Don't think so. Let's get a little perspective on this. North Kohala is a district at the top end of the Big Island, one of 4 rural districts. Not 200 years ago, the Hawaiians had 8,000 people living here, and they fed them off of taro. Fred Cachola, a noted historian and a student of North Kohala, showed us last week an ahupua'a, one of 4, that had 640 lo'is on it. That's how you use a gulch if you really want to get a lot of food. Well, none of those gulches are working right now. And by the way, all of the flatlands, that is the farm lands, the lands that were cleared of trees and rocks and boulders and shaped so that the water would hold what came down from the ditch that was dug just after the beginning of this century. The investment in that particular kind of growing land is very costly, and you don't just crank one of those up. Well, it turns out all those particular kinds of pieces of land were recently sold to people mostly from other parts of the world who will live here someday, but 20 acres, 40 acres, and these kind of people are not farmers. They never have been informed that they should farm here, and they're inheriting a situation where they'll probably spend 5 years trying to figure out how to build a 6,000 square foot retirement home. Well, there went our farmland. There went all the water tied to the farmland to make it powerful. And well, since the earthquake, we've discovered very clearly that we can't have any of our emergency systems work if the power's down. And by the way, if the power's down on the island, we can't get the water out of the ground. So, no food, no power, no water. Just like that. And the 7,000 people who live here right now are faced with a decision of whether they should open this land up to more houses. You know, as many as 500 houses. And if you look at this land from above on Google Earth, you'll see that there are 500 houses between Kapa'au and Hawaii alone. So we're going to double the number of houses in that space. That's what the build-out looks like. God knows it's 1,000 more cars, likely. And the demand under a situation where the water and the power and the food aren't going to come, let's say because of a shipping stoppage, is great. So, take on the new houses, take on, well, tract housing development. You can't grow any food or get any water out of a tract housing development. That's an urban footprint. That's not a rural footprint. So we would lose the quality of life as a rural community, and we would be ever more dangerously in need of major overhaul to keep from being in trouble during a shipping stoppage. Well, I hope I've given you some more of the details. Doesn't look good. Got to stop the housing, period, right now. No question about it. Don't even think about it. And we've got to study the ways that new development can be totally sustainable while figuring out how to turn all of this land, now owned by people who are hardly here, back into some form of farming. Oh, lots to do and some things to stop. Jim Channon, in the Bioport, North Kohala. Go Planet.